Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hello Goddess podcast. I am your host, Mandy Dea, recently graduated naturopath. And today we have a special guest, Mrs. Kris Batzner. How are you, my dear?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. You have this beautiful aura, this beautiful energy, and I was looking forward to having you as a guest for sure.
Me too. I'm very excited to talk all things goddess with you. I'm super stoked.
Yay, this is going to be fun. So, Kris is the founder and guide at Central Michigan Kundalini. So this is such a beautiful, beautiful thing that you have going on. So thankful for you. So, I would love for you to explain what you do to our listeners.
You bet. So I do several different things within my business within Central Michigan Kundalini. I am primarily focused on working with women who are going through transitions, whether it is having children or having their children leave home for college, quitting a job to stay home, retiring, starting a new career, getting a divorce, any big life transitions. I help women navigate those transitions by looking at the whole body, the whole person, the whole experience. Often when we are in stress, we go to counselors or therapists, which is fantastic. If we're sick, we go to physicians and chiropractors and all of the other helpers that in that area. And what I do is I bring all aspects of the person together. We do Kundalini, which dives deep into that divine feminine, that goddess energy, which I can talk about in a minute. And we tap into intuition. We realize all of the stories that we've been telling ourselves and clear those blocks, clear those old stories. And really, I help those women that are in these big transitions define who they really want to be as they move forward.
That's absolutely beautiful.
Mhm.
So, from what I understand, it's not just about yoga. There's more elements to what you're offering, right?
Yes, yes. So Kundalini yoga is the foundation of what we do. And anyone in my private mentorship program, which is that one-to-one work, gets access to all of my other offerings. And I have a Kundalini community, which we practice Kundalini together. We get together monthly, twice a month, and talk about Kundalini. We talk about the practices that we have and different concepts and topics that go along with our practice. And then I also have a yoga community, Yoga with Kris, which is more traditional yoga. And then I do workshops and retreats all the time as well, focused on different aspects of this. And so Kundalini is a foundation, just because we have to be in touch with our body. We have to move our body. We have to find balance in our body, and we have to find our breath before we can do anything else. And then from that is our kind of our launching off point. We have to get comfortable with our body. We have to understand our body. And then we can start to understand our feelings and why we hate our body, or what we think, why we move this way, or why our shoulders always hurt in this type of situation, or when we get a headache, And so from there we do a lot of talk, discussion and journaling and mantra and a lot of breath work, a ton of breath work in what we do. And so, yeah, Kundalini is the foundation of it, but a lot of times, sometimes we roll out our mat and we do a lot of intuitive movements, where I have several clients right now where we start in a position and then we'll start talking about things, and then they'll be like, hey, can I find this pose? And it's like, yeah, find that pose. And then all of a sudden, all of these other things come up because we store so much in our physical body that we don't pay attention to. That once we start to move and we start to pay attention, all of these other layers start to unravel and open up to us.
Mm. That's so incredible. And I
Yeah.
love that you're infusing like these Eastern philosophies and you're adding like journaling and exploring all these avenues because I think that we're in a big need of that kind of approach right now of the holistic movement is so powerful. And for the longest time, we've been looking at wellness more of a mental, that mental paradigm, but really it's about like being in your body and
Yes.
connecting with your body because that's where we store all of um these hurts, these pains and trauma as well.
Yes.
So
Very much
such a
so.
beautiful, beautiful work that you're doing right now. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. I love every minute of it.
Oh, I bet. I bet. And does it feel like work when you really find
Yeah.
your passion? That's how I
Right.
feel as well with my
Yeah.
career. So beautiful. I would love to know what got you into that. Like where did that all begin?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's just my own journey, right? Like like when you are doing marketing, we attract the clients that are us, right? Like we market to ourselves, right? We can speak most authentically to what we have experienced ourselves. And so I've been a yogi my whole life, and like I literally would do yoga with my mom when we were little. Like we'd pull out that black and white photo book, and we'd pick the poses and we'd do them together in the living room. And so yoga has always been part of my life. It's been a traditional hatha yoga. And then when I had babies myself, when I had my children, I started to teach. I had a career as a music therapist before I did yoga.
Wow.
And it was great. Like I put my husband through college, and I was a breadwinner, and I loved every minute of that. And then when I had babies, I decided to stay home, and my husband got a job. And so my life changed, a big transition. And the thing that carried me through that was yoga. I'd kind of gotten away from yoga, and then I found it again, and I became a teacher. And then we moved to a different part of the country, and I wanted to stay home, but I also wanted to still give something to the community and do yoga and teach. And so I eventually opened a yoga studio, which I loved. And through that process, yoga has always been an anchor for me. And I've always understood how much it impacts my physical and my mental body, and my emotions. It balances my emotions. But what I saw from my experience in the yoga studio was that people would come in looking for that physical practice, right? And they would come in
Hmm.
wanting to feel better in their bodies. But what would get them to stay was the way they felt after they left their mat, right? That emotional impact that that practice has, and that sense of community that they get from moving their bodies with someone and coming into a place that is accepting of them. And so through my studies, I continued to study and I continued to practice. And I found the practice of Kundalini, and I had done it a couple times, and it was totally different. It's, I have a client that I work with, and she describes Kundalini. This is the best description I've ever heard. Is like, we flail our arms around and say funny words, and it feels really great.
Said that.
And from an outside, that's exactly what it looks like. Like you're kind of doing these weird movements, and you're
Yeah.
saying Sanskrit and mantra and singing, and it's like, what the heck is happening? But the impact of that on my whole perception of the world was amazing. And so I decided to um, train in it, and I was trained with Guru Singh and Brett Larkin, and I loved their component of it because Kundalini kind of has a history, and it's not a great
Mm.
history, and so
Hmm.
I didn't want to be part of that, right? And so
Okay.
I thought, well, I'll just do it on my own, and blah 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 blah. And when I found Brett and Guru Singh, they teach Kundalini the way I teach yoga, which is completely accessible and adaptable. And if you are sitting there with intent, you are practicing it. And I love that because that is really what Kundalini is. And that is so powerful. Kundalini is a divine feminine practice. It's a practice of that Shakti energy, of that feminine energy. And so that
Wow.
traditional yoga practice includes that balance of the masculine and feminine, but our society, especially in America, and in the Western society, is they approach it from a very masculine standpoint of the structure of you do the
Mm.
poses and you have to get better by doing the poses deeper, and you have to do them this order, and like that's
Hmm.
very much a masculine structure. And
That's right.
the intuitive nature of Kundalini was so powerful to me, that emotional, intuitive, expressive nature of a Kundalini practice, which is that divine feminine, that goddess
Mm.
energy, right? That just
Hmm.
resonated with me. And I was already seeing how I was carrying that aspect into my traditional yoga teaching in the studio, and how people in the studio were responding to that because that's what they really wanted.
Hmm.
And so I jumped in, and I have never looked back. And it's such a powerful practice that not a lot of people know about. A lot of people are afraid of it
Yeah.
because, as anything often in society that is feminine, it gets talked bad about. And, people are afraid of expressing emotions and losing control, and, but I love it. And that's kind of how I
Yeah.
found it.
That's fantastic. That's so cool. I've never tried Kundalini
Mhm.
yoga, but I
Mhm.
would love to. I would love
Ah,
to try that at some point. You
yes.
do online as well, right? It's not just in person?
Correct. Everything I do is online, just because I used to own a studio here
That's right.
in locally, and I really wanted with Kundalini, like I shifted who I was and what I was doing. I really wanted to make that accessible to anybody in the world. And so, now
Yeah.
we have people from Australia, we have people from Wisconsin, we have people from Canada, we have people from all over the place that come together and practice, and it's really cool.
Mhm.
And like this Sunday, actually, I know you're probably going to do the podcast, post it later, but this Sunday, since we're recording it, I'm doing a live full moon in Virgo practice that is Kundalini, and that's
Ooh,
free to anybody. And so you can hop on. I'll make sure you have the Zoom link for that. And
yeah.
you can, every month I do free practices online so anyone can experience it. And then with my Kundalini community, it's a monthly membership community where you come in
Um,
and like you get to do Kundalini with us. And we have different ways to do Kundalini throughout that community. Like sometimes we have an hour-long practice, at least so once a month, maybe twice a month we have those.
mhm.
Right now, we're finishing up a 40-day sadhana, which is a 40-day, every day we practice for 15 minutes together in the morning. And so there are within that I have pre-recorded videos. So there's ways to practice with me online, um, and give it a try. I would encourage you to do that.
Yeah. I think that's so amazing because you're really reaching a lot more people.
Yeah.
Some some communities don't necessarily have yoga studios in their
Mhm.
village or like smaller villages and
Yes.
stuff like that. Yeah, I live in like a medium-sized city,
Mhm.
so we do have a few here. But I'm definitely gonna attend that if I'm not busy on that is it the
I
full
love
moon
that.
you were saying?
It is the full
The
moon
full
in
moon.
Virgo. Yeah, the full moon is actually Saturday, but
Amazing.
I'm busy Saturday, so we're doing it Sunday.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, like you adjust, like you're not pushing people to do these like crazy poses. If you want to just start at a beginner level, I'm sure it's very accessible to you.
Yes.
I've tried a few types of yoga, not Kundalini yet, but so far my favorite was Yin.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and I do like the meditative aspect of it because that's how I even got into yoga. It was through meditation.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's so powerful because I'm assuming too there's a big element of the breath, right?
Yes.
Connecting to the movement and the breath together.
100%. Yes. In
Yeah.
Kundalini, we actually start with the breath. Like the breath
Mm,
is, I always say that breath is the gateway. If you do nothing else, if you breathe, you are in it, you are getting it, you are doing it.
mm,
And when we even start, when we start, we sing. It's chanting, but I call it singing because some people get nervous around chanting and what that means. And like
right.
we just vibrate our voice, our vocal cords, and our resonance of our body, and we do that. And then we breathe.
Hmm.
And then before we even move, the way we do movements in Kundalini is different, where we do movements like a repetitive movement for like 2 minutes or a set amount of time. And so before we even do the movement, we find the breath. And so, like, let's say we're twisting, right? And so
Hmm.
we exhale, inhale, exhale. So it's not the movement that we're paying attention to. It's the inhale, exhale. So everything we do is governed by the breath.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so powerful. Like
Yeah.
when you're doing it, when you see it, you don't realize how powerful it is. It's like when you really practice it, it's so good. It's so good. The breath work and the movement and
Yes.
everything together. Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
And I know that for you, joy is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. How do you cultivate joy into your life, and how do you infuse that into your career as well?
I love that question. So
Mm,
I believe that joy is our inherent nature. And
right.
so when you think about little kids, right? Like they have big emotions, right? And one of their foundational emotions is joy and curiosity. Like they don't know to not like people. They don't know to judge people. They don't know to protect and not be different. Like they are just joyful and
Mm,
expressive. And we forget that as we become adults. And so one of my jobs that I see as for myself is to help people find that joy again,
mm,
right? And if we allow ourselves to find that joy and to believe two things: one, that we deserve that joy, that we are worthy
mhm,
to be joyful, and two, that it's actually there within us,
mhm.
then our life changes. And, that's one of the reasons I love Kundalini, is because on the mat, we can focus on this movement or whatever it is that we're doing. But what's really happening is that we are shifting our awareness. We are shifting our perception of our place in the universe.
Mm,
And we are starting to realize, oh my gosh, I tell myself this story that I can't do this, or I am being judged because of this, or this person doesn't like me, or I'm bad
mm,
at this, or, and so I realize I'm robbing myself of joy,
mhm.
when really I am really good at this, or I have a lot of fun with this, or this is what fills me up. And so when we start to shift our perception and realize that really truly our inherent nature is joy, our world changes, and we make different decisions, and we do things differently, and we interact with people differently, and that's contagious, right? And so, it's not only for us, it's for those around us. And so, my job is to help people, to convince them that they have joy within them, and
Oh my
also
goodness.
help them find it and carry forward from that place. I mean, joy is our inherent nature. Like, our heart is joyful.
I've never heard it like that. And that's
Hmm.
so beautiful. I had chills, like full body chills when you said
Yeah.
that because
Good.
it's so important. And I talk a lot about like how we're inherently worthy, which is
Yes.
another layer of that. Like we don't have to earn our worth. But
Yes.
the concept that our inherent nature is joy, that's so beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that.
My pleasure. And it's funny how much we convince ourselves that that is not the case, right?
Oh yes, with our stories, you were saying the
Yeah.
stories we say and we repeat in our heads. And
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's one aspect of that divine feminine too, right? Like, that's, that joy can be a really big emotion. And as adults, we're taught to not have big emotions. And
Hmm.
so if we allow ourselves to be joyful, that's boisterous, that's vibrant, that's shiny, that's full and expressive. And we're told that that's bad. Right. And
Yeah.
so there we are, back in that structure of that masculine sun energy of like, well, you can't
Mm,
do that. Well,
mm.
we can, because our inherent nature is that. And so I'm being myself when I do that.
That's right. That's right. And
Mhm.
I'm assuming too, like you were saying, you help people through transitions. It's like
Mhm.
going through the grieving process, letting
Yes.
go, processing all of these
Yes.
emotions, not hiding from them, not toxic positivity either.
Correct.
It's definitely just like processing and allowing the joy to arise naturally afterwards, right?
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's really a good point to make, because just because our inherent nature is joy doesn't mean we don't feel other emotions, right? Like, that grief is poignant, that sadness is poignant, that anger is poignant and a motivator. And, all
Mhm.
different emotions have different purposes. And I feel that just because joy is our inherent nature, we aren't always joyful, right? There are times we're
Yeah.
going to be angry, or we're going to be frustrated, we're going to be sad, we're going to be tired, we're going to be whatever emotion you have. But that seed of joy is always
Mhm.
there. And that
Mhm.
is almost like, it's like when you plant a seed, right? It's there. And sometimes you plant more seeds and other things grow, but that
Mhm.
seed is always there, that we can
That's
always
right.
germinate and return to. And we let those other plants grow as well, because they all have useful benefits.
Yeah.
But that joy is always in that pot with everything else. And we can always
Yeah.
return there when we are ready. Mhm.
Hmm. Yes, that's so beautiful and so important to remember that.
Yeah.
Definitely 100%.
Mhm.
And it's, yeah, just reconnecting with that natural level of joy that we have and that we connect to any time.
Yeah.
So I was wondering too, if somebody has never done yoga and they
Mhm.
are kind of intimidated by the process, what
Mhm.
would you say to somebody like that that may be listening and wants to try out for the first time?
Yes. So I would say that we have all been there. And that we are all there very often, even when I've done it for my whole life, there are days where I'm like, I don't know about this. And so I would say that it takes a lot of courage to step on your mat for the first time.
Mhm.
And I think that I would say to them that you are worthy, they are worth it. They are valuable. Their time is valuable,
Hmm.
and they are worth taking the time to take time for themselves. I often talk to people
Hmm.
and I just say, think of how you would feel if you took care of yourself like you take care of others,
Oof, powerful.
right?
Yeah.
And maybe stepping onto your yoga mat is a way that you can do just that. That doesn't mean, and I say this to everybody, no matter how long they've practiced with me or with anybody, it doesn't mean you have to be doing what I'm doing. Like, your mat
Mhm.
is your safe space
Mm.
and your judgment-free zone, your joyful zone, however you want to think about it. And you get to be in complete control. And so if you come to your mat and you spend the whole time in child's pose,
Mm.
that's fine. Like, that's what
Mhm.
you need. That's what you do. And so I think Instagram does a disservice to people doing yoga, to people trying to
Yeah.
get into yoga, because we all see those Instagram yogis that are putting their feet behind their heads or standing, in
Hmm.
dancer pose or whatever the case may be. And everyone
Right.
thinks, oh, well, I can't look like that, so I might as well not do it.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is, 0.1% of the population that does yoga. I don't
Yeah.
really, I mean, I do like to stand on my head just because that's who I am, but like, I never ask people to stand on their heads. I like,
Mm.
I have a super tight back, and
Yeah.
shoulders, and, my forward fold isn't Instagram worthy. And so, like, we are real people doing
Mhm.
real yoga. And to
Yeah.
be perfectly honest, the postures aren't the purpose, the point. The postures are
Yeah. I
just
think,
the
yeah.
gateway.
Yeah, that's, and I love that. I love that you're saying that because I know it's hard to show up sometimes.
Mhm.
For one, showing up for yourself and taking
Yeah,
time for yourself.
yeah,
And number two, doing something that's outside of your comfort zone. But if you
yes,
can just show up and do your best and know that that's enough, like
yep,
just come as you are. And that's
yep.
a whole purpose, I think, of yoga is being who you are.
Yeah, and
And
I think the other thing I would just add to that too is
mhm,
knowing that the first place you go to do yoga may not be the place that fits for you to do yoga, right? Like,
yeah.
giving it some time, and not just having one experience with it. Like, you may walk into a studio and may feel way at home, and that is your home now, and you can feel
Right.
comfortable practicing. You may walk in and think, I don't think I want to be here. Go somewhere else, right? Like, you
Hmm.
can find another place. Like, just because that studio or that place you practice at gym is that way,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that all of them are that way. And
Hmm.
even within that, you may have one teacher that you absolutely love, and then you try another teacher and you're like, wow, I really didn't like that, or the other way around. And so I
Hmm.
encourage you to keep trying and keep looking, because your teacher and your class and your style of yoga is out there. Don't give up on yourself, is really what it is.
Yes, yes. And I'm sure a lot of people listening would want to work with you
I'd
and
love that.
try that, first experience of doing yoga
Yeah.
online in the comfort of their own home as well.
Yes.
That's a very beautiful experience to have, that comfort
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that
It's much easier.
accessibility.
Yeah. To do
Mm-hmm.
that when no one's watching.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's so much positive that comes from that as well.
Yep.
And so I have another question for you before we go towards the end of the episode.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, like, when you think about everything that you've been through and where it led to, owning a studio and now this online
Mhm.
community and everything, what do you see like for the future for yourself? What do you think that is going to be like your thing, your contribution that you want to
Mm.
keep offering to the world?
Kundalini is my first answer, and I feel like I teach Kundalini differently than other people,
Mm.
and so my goal, I've made it my mission to share the way I teach and that practice of Kundalini with as many people as I possibly can.
Hmm.
And really, the other aspect of that pairs nicely with that Kundalini is making that divine feminine and that goddess energy accessible to everybody, and starting to really bring that education component back into our culture, because we've been so much the patriarchy, to sound cliche, and masculine energy and structure and organization and money driven, and everything else that comes with that sun, that masculine energy, that we are doing ourselves a disservice. And so within teaching that Kundalini practice, my underlying mission is really to bring in that power of that divine feminine, because that intuition, that emotion, that expression, that flexibility and fluidity is so powerful. And we are completely imbalanced in a society and individually because we ignore this super powerful, soft, strong aspect of ourselves. And so my mission is to really encourage that and really get as many people on board with bringing in, whatever gender they choose to be, that bringing in that feminine energy, that goddess energy, and, all of the goddess archetypes. There are so many different goddesses and goddess archetypes that they each serve a different purpose. And each one of them has a strength. And we think of goddesses as, Venus or whatever, and that's it, right? Or the crone, the ugly witch that doesn't, that eats children. Well, neither of those are accurate, right? And so this divine feminine energy is such a deeper core and such strength that I feel like it will change the world, right? And it sounds
Oof.
cliche when I say that, but I do feel like it will change the world. And, the other aspect of that too is, as we move into, we're in the age of Aquarius, like we just stepped into the age of Aquarius astrologically. And that is a feminine energy, right? Like we are done with the patriarchy, we're done with that structure, and those are crumbling around us. I mean, we see that. And we are being called as like light leaders to really step into that power that we have, that intuitive feminine power, because that is the energy of this new age that we literally are just starting. 2021 is when it started. And so now, like all the planets are coming in right now, right? So it's kind of exciting. Now all these things are happening, but right now we are being really called to step up as leaders from a feminine side. And so my mission is to do that. And, I love to do workshops. I love to do retreats. I love to do classes, online classes and courses, like just to get this information out as much. And obviously I love to teach Kundalini anywhere I can, anywhere and all the time. So yeah, that's my mission.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's a beautiful mission, and you're already accomplishing it. Like you're doing so much beautiful things in the world. And like you said, the feminine energies has been repressed for so long,
Yeah.
and it's such a powerful aspect of the human experience, or anything in the universe has both feminine and masculine. So
Yes.
it's, having the healed version of everything and merging those two
Yes.
together and, infusing that. It's such a beautiful thing, So, yeah, thank you so much for the work that you do for women and for
Mm.
people all over the world. Thank you so
I
much.
am happy to do it.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
filled up to do it. Yeah. And
It's
I think
funny. Yeah.
I think that that's a good point too, is like, I think it's easy to tip the scales in the other way, right? And as I talk about this
Mm,
feminine energy, like I think it's easy to be like, oh, nothing about the masculine, like nothing about, we can't do
right.
anything, that structure, but that's not it. Like if we are truly in that feminine goddess energy, we understand how that masculine supports the feminine, right? That
hmm
structure is that container for that expression and intuition. We have to have both of them while we are building this feminine energy. Yeah.
100%. Like, yeah, like you said, not tipping the scale on the other side, but kind of
Correct.
like, you know, re like returning to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
That
that balance.
balance, that harmony, like the yin yang and everything.
Yeah,
That makes so
exactly.
much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that. I can't wait. I'm gonna work with you 100%.
I'm so excited.
So,
It's
yeah,
going to
it'll
be
be good.
fabulous. Yes.
Yeah.
Yay.
So, I do have the two final questions
Mhm.
to ask you.
Mhm.
So, the first one I want to ask you is, if you could go back in time and speak to any version of your younger self, could be like as a child or as a teen or young adult, what would you say to her?
Mm. So I would say that I would speak to probably my early young adult and maybe late teen self. And I would say that your intuition is accurate and you need to pay attention to it.
Mm,
Because as a child, I had that. And it was one of those things where as a kid, you don't realize that other people aren't the way you are. Like, like I lucid dream and I've always lucid dreamed and I always
right.
have feelings about people and, and I just thought everybody did that. And then there comes a point where you realize that. And so then you start to question yourself. And so I think my message to myself would be, Don't question yourself. You know what you know, and you are spot on when you know, and trust that.
To trust yourself. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
powerful. And I think a lot of people do have the intuition.
Yes.
And not everybody develops it at the same rate, but we all have
Mhm.
that guidance. Um, and we doubt it, like you were saying.
Yes.
It's like, okay, but what if this is just my on all in my head? But when
Mhm.
you realize, like, no, this is something that we need to trust, and it's anchored, and it comes from a very sacred place in the
Yes.
soul.
Well said. Well said. Yes.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
And the other question I always ask my guests is, what is your definition of a goddess?
hmm So I define a goddess as a person that is autonomous and well balanced, a person that is able to be calm in the storm and knows who they are.
Love that.
Mhm.
That's something to strive towards. Beautiful answer. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Kris, it was a very, very pleasurable experience to talk to you.
I had so
I
much
was,
fun.
yeah, good. I will use your word. I feel joy right now. Like I
Ah,
feel this was so beautiful. I'm happy we connected and hopefully we can stay connected
I would
afterwards.
love that. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we
And
could talk for hours about this.
yeah, yeah, we can keep going for hours. The time flies when you're having a good conversation with somebody
Yeah.
that, gets you. And
Yeah.
um, so if somebody is listening and they want to connect with you, where can they find you?
The easiest way is to just pop on my website. It's krisbatzner.com. You can find my Yoga with Kris community, you can find my Kundalini community, and you can find information on my private mentorship, which is that one-to-one work that we do with
Mm,
women in particular. And I'm not exclusive to women, but I focus on women in those transitions. Yeah, everything is on my website, including events and things like that. That would be the best way to do it.
amazing. So I'll put all of her links in the description
Yeah,
box if you're looking as well. You can find it either, whatever platform you're listening to or YouTube. Everything's going to be in the description.
love it.
So, thank you so much, Kris. It was a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to be on my show today.
Thank
I
you, Mandy. I'm
appreciate
so glad you had me.
I appreciate you and I appreciate everything you said was so beautiful.
Mm,
So, I will see everybody next week. Sending you all of the love and the light. Bye.
bye.